We well know that many of the stories told are allegorical in nature, telling the tales of our spiritual journey, our spiritual adventures. The other day when we were together, it was suggested that these words, warrior, samurai, gladiator, Viking, all imply combat or combativeness. But in our spiritual journeying, where we find that the meanings of words that we've learned and been conditioned to believe their meaning, when that conditioning is gone, words take on a different connotation, coming from our experience, not from our learning and conditioning. So, relative to these words, warrior, samurai, gladiator, Viking, let's see what this simple story reveals for us. It's a story which begins at the beginning of the life of a young boy. He was just 8 years old, and he was called Running Horse. He was born into a tribe of Navajo Indians. His father had been called Spotted Horse, but his father, a great warrior, had died some years earlier, leaving Little Horse in the care of his mother, who was called Gentle Stream. Now, Gentle Stream was a very proud woman, and rather than have the Navajo tribe take care of them as would have occurred, she was a very adept weaver. So she wove beautiful carpets which she sold to keep them in the way of food and lodging. Now, every day the boy would go off into the mountains. He seemed to be tireless. He loved to walk and run in the mountains. But his purpose on his excursions was to find gems for his mother. He loved to bring back beautiful stones with which she could make pendants along with her weaving. So one day, when the boy was out on an excursion, he climbed higher and farther than he had climbed before, and tripping, he slipped and fell into a ravine. But not only did he fall into the ravine, but at its bottom there seemed to open up from under him the ground on which he fell, and he found himself in a cave, a dark cave. But as his gaze swept around the darkness, he noticed just a spot of light. So following that spot of light, he found himself deeper into the cavernous opening of what was a great vastness. But then, as his eyes grew accustomed to the dark light, a sound was heard, the sound of a booming voice. Who is it who invades the space in which I have inhabited for these great eons of time? The boy was afraid, quaking and quivering in his moccasins. And with a quavering voice, he asked, who are you? And then, in the dark lightness, he saw a being, small, like himself, but a man. And the voice said, I am Peace Warrior, the keeper of the sacred opals. I have been here long before the Navajo came, and I will be here long after the Navajo have gone. The boy said, oh, I'm so sorry to invade your space. But the being replied, no, I welcome you. Please come as often as you may. I will impart to you the way of the peaceful warrior. And with that, the little being took from his leather pouch a stone which he handed to the boy. And then in an instant he was gone. The boy hastened back to his mother, gave her the stone, and she looked, and seeing the wonder of its colors, and recognizing the beauty of an opal, the boy told her the story of his meeting. And so his mother, taking the gem, delighted in showing all of the members of the tribe and telling the story of her son. Now the others thought that it was the boy's imaginings, but he came often to that place and indeed learned the ways of a peaceful warrior, each time bringing back a sacred stone. Now there was one amongst the tribe who was greedy and wanted what this boy was receiving, the stones of value. So one day he followed him, and after the boy's encounter in the cave, the avaricious Indian followed in, taking with him a lighted torch in an endeavor to find this being. But indeed, after some seeking, the booming voice challenged this Indian invader, saying, who are you who enters the space of the peaceful warrior with a heart of greed? Go and do not return, forgetting even why you came and where you were. This being staggered out of the cave, not remembering even the path that had been taken to arrive there. But the years passed, and our boy grew. But one day he came back from one of his excursions to find his mother with a very high fever. The elderly woman of the tribe came to give her soup and herbs, but nothing seemed to help her fever and the illness which beset her. And one of the old elders said, "Perhaps it is time for your mother to join your father in the happy hunting grounds." But the boy was bereft, and he ran off to the mountain. And when he came into the cave, he called for the peace warrior, "Please, I need your help." And the peace warrior appeared. And when he was told why the boy was here, he said, "Certainly, I will help, but there must be payment for this." The boy said, "I will give anything, my arms, my legs." And the peace warrior said, "No, I want your voice." The boy said, "I will pay any price." And so it was. He returned to the camp, and there he found his mother sitting up, looking well, sipping a bowl of hot herby soup. But from that moment on, he had no voice. He grew to manhood, a fine, strapping warrior, but without a voice. It came time for him to marry, but of course, none of the maidens would want a husband who was mute, except one maiden who fell in love with our warrior, and the warrior in love with her. So a marriage was arranged, and wearing her beautiful white deerskin robe, they were wed. Presents were bought from all the members of the tribe, but when all had been given, there was one that remained. And when this was passed to the bridal couple, it was a piece of bark in which was burned, etched, the words, "I give you back your voice as this wedding gift. Speak and say what you will. Peace warrior to peace warrior." What segment of your spiritual journey does this tale relate to? And can you recall the first words that you spoke when the days of being mute came to an end? What were the words that was spoken to the bride and all present. Can you remember those days of not having a voice, not being able to express what had been experienced after letting go conditioning, learning, knowledge, but stuck inside like a flame wanting to burst forth, but finding not the language to do so? Can you remember? What is it that now is behind every word, in every breath, touch, thought, that were the words that were spoken after our time of having no voice? Why do we have to know who we are and what we do?